Greetings and welcome to Walden's Pond on this June 3rd, 2007. I'm Shelton Walden, your host and producer of Walden's Pond, the weekly radio program that heads your way every Sunday, 1 to 2 o'clock here on WBAI, 99.5 FM in New York. We discuss health, culture, and politics, and so much more. And this afternoon, finally, we hope to have him on live, the one and only Ralph Nader. Yes, he will be here with us live to discuss, among other things, his latest book called The 17 Traditions, about his childhood growing up in Winsted, Connecticut, how he got his values and his beliefs, and made him into one of the greatest American figures of American history. We'll be talking with him about that, of course, about politics, and about a lot more on this edition of Walden's Pond. Line up to talk with him, hopefully, during the course of the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back. 2 after the hour, 1 o'clock on this overcast and very, well, we have a very dangerous weather trend coming our way. The remnants of Hurricane or Tropical Storm Barry, which has made its way over the Florida Peninsula, and it's heading our way somewhere, coming to a city near you, particularly this one. And it'll be coming your way this Sunday. So bring your weather wear your rain boots and your weather gear, and make sure you're prepared because this is coming and there's a lot of rain. We need it, and so does Florida, for that matter. Shelton Walden here, Walden's Pond. We hope you enjoyed last week's program when we discussed a new book by New York One anchorman Dominic Carter. He described his childhood, a very traumatic childhood in many ways, called No Mama's Boy, and urge you to get it. It's out at Barnes and Noble online, and I believe in the bookstores. It's a powerful read, and it's a must read. A gentleman who came up from very humble beginnings to become one of the leading journalists in New York City, Dominic Carter. He on New York One. You can see him every night on the show Inside City Hall. Again, coming up very shortly, we'll be talking with Ralph Nader, the consumer activist and presidential candidate. He'll be coming up very shortly talking about his book and about politics in general. Just want to get some housekeeping out of the way here. For next, we'll be on next Sunday, June 10th, with a regular program. But the 2 weeks after that, we will not be on. Will be preempted for the Clearwater Revival Festival. That'll be taking place up in Clearwater, up in Westchester County. That'll be on the 17th of June, so we will not be here. And we'll also be preempted on June 24th, I believe, for the Gay Pride Festival. That'll be aired here as well. So, but we'll be back on, I believe, the 30th of, the 1st of July. We'll be back on the air on the 1st of July. So next week we'll be on, but the following 2 weeks we will not be here. So stay, if you're interested, tune into those programs, and I'm sure you'll find them most interesting here on WBAI. Some news lots of news around the world, of course, happening as we speak, and lots of stuff going on. You probably heard about Cindy Sheehan, the anti-war activist, who decided in the last week or so to suspend her activities against the war. She wrote a long missive on her blog and on the internet, saying that She, in a sense, was exhausted, tired, disgusted, and will not participate in any more anti-war activities. She was very critical of people on all sides of the political spectrum. She thinks that egos have gotten in the way of ending the war in Iraq, and so she's been very upset about it. She said that she had sacrificed her health, her marriage, and a lot of other things, including going almost to the point of bankruptcy, to protest against the war. And now she's going back home to California, she said, to reclaim her life and to rebuild relationships that have been torn asunder as a result of what she's been, her noble cause. So it's very interesting to note that, indeed. So Cindy Sheehan has gone to, if you will, recharge her batteries and to see what else she can do with the rest of her life. So quite interesting. Anyway, also yesterday, very dramatic news coming out of Brooklyn. Federal prosecutors yesterday charged that a retired cargo worker at Kennedy Airport plotted with a former member of the Guyanese parliament and two other men to blow up terminal buildings, fuel tanks, and the network of fuel pipelines that run beneath the airport complex. Three of the four men, including the former airport worker and a former parliament member, were arrested yesterday and Friday by agents from the FBI and police detectives. Apparently, this had been a long-running 18-month investigation, describing that they had plans to blow up some parts of Kennedy Airport terminals and the fuel lines, and so quite interesting. The big press conference held yesterday by the Police Commissioner Ray Kelly, the head of the FBI's New York office, Mark Mershon, and the U.S. Attorney in Brooklyn, Roslyn Moskow, among many other officials. So quite interesting to note what's going on here. I guess people are keeping, it's quite interesting, to say the least, what's going on there. 107 is the time here on WBAI. Also want to share with you a little music and about an artist named Chip Shelton. If you don't recognize the name, he's been here on my show in the past. He has a new CD out called Chip Shelton Live from the Cape May Jazz Festival, Stop 2. Half Flute Will Travel. He'll be performing this coming week at the Cecil's Jazz Club and Restaurant in West Orange, New Jersey, and also at Minton's Playhouse here in Manhattan on 118th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue in Manhattan. And you may want to check that out. He's a very accomplished musician, jazz musician, flautist, and you can go to the website if you wish to check out his schedule or performances. www.sonicbids.com/Chip Shelton. That's www.sonicbids.com/Chip Shelton. And so you may want to check that out coming up this week. So Chip Shelton, and we're going to play a little bit of that. And then when we come back, you'll be listening and hearing from activist and two-time presidential candidate Ralph Nader here on this edition of Walden's Pond here on WBAI 99.5 FM in New York. It's 109 here, and we're going to take a little break and come back with some music, and then Ralph Nader. Stay with us.
Take it away, Lou.
1:16 here on WBAI in New York. That was Chip Shelton live at the Cape May Jazz Festival from the CD Half Flute Will Travel. He'll be performing this coming week at Cecil's Jazz Club and Restaurant in West Orange, New Jersey, and at Minton's Playhouse at 208 West 118th Street at St. Nicholas Avenue this on June 9th. So, again, his performance schedule, go to www.sonicbids, that's SONICBIDS.com/Chip Shelton. No relation. We're on WBAI in New York. It is 1:16. Again, very shortly we'll be joined by Mr. Ralph Nader. He'll be joining us in a few minutes. In the meantime, I'd like to take some of your phone calls at 212-209-2900, 212-209-2900. We'll be joined by Mr. Nader very shortly, very live here on WBAI. In the meantime, I'd like to get your thoughts about some of the events in the news. If you have any thoughts about what's going on right now, give us a call, 212-209-2900 on this overcast day in New York City. Again, some of the presidential candidates, the campaign is continuing. Fred Thompson is considering, the former senator from Tennessee, of course, the actor on Law and Order. We've all seen for many years on Law and Order. He is forming an exploratory committee to decide whether or not he wants to run for president on the Republican side. As a matter of fact, tonight and tomorrow night, there will be two presidential debates in New Hampshire, a broadcast on CNN. Tonight, I believe it's the Democrats are debating tonight, and the Republicans will be debating tomorrow night. All 10 Republican candidates and all 8 Democratic candidates will be debating tomorrow night, tonight on CNN. I believe the debate starts at 8 p.m. So you may want to tune in for that, find out what they're talking about. Should be a very interesting presidential race there. Ralph Nader, of course, ran last time, and he gathered a lot of hostility from former supporters who were very angry with him because they thought he cost them the 2000 election, and he ran last time. We're curious to know if he's going to run again this time in 2008. There's also an effort underway by a group called Unity '08, which is actually, interestingly enough, organized in part by a colleague of Fred Thompson on Law and Order, Sam Waterston, who plays the lead district attorney there on that show. He has been very prominent in trying to forge an independent way, maybe an independent bid by someone who may want to run for president into the next year. So it's interesting to know how that is gathering steam as well. So lots of stuff going on in politics. Cynthia McKinney, the former congressperson from the Atlanta area, a controversial one at that, she is said that she is considering running for president too on the Green Party line. Be interesting to know what Mr. Nader thinks about that, since he ran on the Green Party last time. So anyway, give us a call, 212-209-2900. Again, Mr. Nader will be joining us very shortly here on Walden's Pond. 212-209-2900. Turn off the radio when you call, and at 1:19 on this overcast day. I believe it may have already started raining in some parts of the metropolitan area. I don't know. I don't have access to a window at the moment. WBAI, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Who's this?
Yes, hi, this is Mike.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, you said Sam Waterston is putting together a committee to look for independent candidates.
Well, he's part of this Unity '08 effort. It's completely, I think, online, and they're trying to forge some, he calls it the spirit of independence. Yes. Okay,
yeah, because there's talk about our mayor, Mr. Bloomberg, possibly mounting a independent run, but you do know, his big strength has been his campaign against guns, particularly straw purchases. But he recently, in my opinion, took a major setback, which kind of shows that I don't think he has the stomach, because
which is what?
He had, as you know, he has been sending investigators to Virginia to certain stores.
Right. So what? I'm sorry. What's your point here?
My point is, there's a local lobby in Virginia, the VCDL, them, along with the Virginia District Attorney.
Wait, what's a VCEL?
Virginia Citizens Defense League. It's a Second Amendment pro-gun group. Them, along with the District Attorney, Virginia, said basically they got the ball rolling, which made the Virginia DA say if Mayor Bloomberg was to continue to do this, he would be charged with felonies.
I see. So what's your point?
And,
what's your? I'm trying.
He kind of gave in pretty quickly. And it's like, if this is how he's going to give into a local group, how will he stand up to national issues? And that.
Okay, I got you. Good point. That's a very good point. Thank you for your call. WBAI, you're on the air. Hello. 212-209-2900. WBAI, you're on the air. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air.
Sheldon, your
Shelton.
email. Hello.
Shelton. Shelton. You're on the air.
Your email box is full. I want to send you an email.
Well, all the WBAI emails right now are full. I mean, they're trying to fix that problem.
Okay, I'll hang up. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, it's Shelton, by the way. WBAI, you're on the air. Hello? 212-209-2900. WBAI, you're on the air. Hello? You're on the air?
Yeah, hi, Shelton.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Listen, this lawyer from Atlanta that had the outrageously drug-resistant TB
yes,
really brings up
Mr. Speaker.
Hello?
His name was Andrew Speaker.
Oh, Charlie, Ridgewood, New Jersey.
No, I'm talking about the person in Atlanta. His name is Andrew Speaker.
Okay. Well, at any rate, this guy, they get on the phone, they tell him, listen, it's not good for the public. Don't you do it. He gets back, he comes in, la, la, la. Why don't they talk now, since they're getting us ready to be incarcerated when they feel it's in the good of the public? You know, they have all these holding pens set up for the coming plague. They call them storage sheds, however. Why don't they question...
Wait. Who's they?
Oh, federal programs. I'm in the public health service, and
you work with the public health service?
Hell yeah, a lot of people do. It's a huge organization.
No, I'm talking about, do you work for the public health service?
Yes.
What do you do?
I'm a dentist.
Okay.
Well, at any rate...
when you say you work with the public health service, you seem like you work for the government.
We're the only ones that take care of the mouths. The private offices can't be bothered with all the people on Medicaid. They just don't want to do it. And right now, since we have the pretense of the free market decides, public health and everybody's health goes out the window if you don't have money. But anyway, on Walmart, they have all these doctor treatment centers and everything, and that's where the people that have a problem are going to go.
Okay, well, you know something? I'm missing the whole point of what you're trying to say.
My point is, in the interest of public health, you shouldn't have medicine nested inside a place where people shop for lawn furniture and food.
Okay, well, I'm trying to smooth out your point. You're saying that you have a criticism of Walmart having public health centers.
Yes, and a lot of other doctors have managed to get letters to the editor in the New York Times, and it's just they turn a deaf ear to it.
By the way, I've seen the same thing at Dwayne Reed, too.
Well, all these areas, what they are is they're skimming off the cheap ends of medicine where you can make a buck. Meanwhile, like I said, the nuts and bolts of medicine, in my case, the mouth, where there's no profit in it, they ignore it.
Okay,
however,
okay, sir, I'm going to move on. But I get your point. Thank you. 212-209-2900, WBAI, you're on the air. Hello? You're on the air. Hello?
Hello. I'm Nesha in Queens, and I'm calling...
You're what in Queens?
Nesha, my name. And I'm in Queens. You have an excellent show.
Thank you.
And when you have a chance, can you ask Ralph Nader about OSHA? Because he began OSHA, and I'm a postal worker, and many of the postal workers feel that, OSHA cannot come into our building anymore.
The Occupational Safe and Health Administration.
Things have changed, and they're not as powerful. And I was wondering if you had any advice on his opinion.
I'm sorry, what's your question about OSHA is what now?
Well, I'd like if you could ask Ralph Nader about OSHA, because he initiated it, and what he thinks about currently about OSHA's power. It seems to be dwindling. People have lost faith in it. And what he would suggest, if he has any suggestions.
I got your point. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. 212-209-2900, WBAI, you're on the air. Hello? You're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon, Shelton.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I wanted to know that Ralph Nader, what does he believe about the Independence Party in respect to who they're supporting for the 2008 presidential candidate? This is Reverend Johnson of Staten Island. Hang up and listen.
Do you the Independence Party here in New York?
National.
National. Okay. All right. Then. Thank you. Okay. WBAI, you're on the air. Hello.
Hey, good afternoon, Sheldon. A great show.
Thank you.
My only question for Mr. Nader is, if you would ask him, is he feeling what I am, that the majority of the politicians that you're hearing, be they Democrat or Republican, are all talking the same usual line, but anyone, let's say Paul Young, for instance, about a week or two back with Giuliani, anyone who actually makes a point.
Wait a minute. You talking about Ron Paul?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Paul Young was a musician out of the 80s. You're right. Yeah. I'm sorry, Ron Paul. Anyone who makes somewhat of an intelligent point, but it seemed to be made as a nutcase. Mm-hmm. I guess is my real question. It's just the regular, usual talk, and anyone who goes outside of the line, who tried to find some intelligence in what's going on in this world, Iraq or whatever, it's being made a nutcase.
Yeah, Ron Paul has received a good deal of attention. By the way, he's a long-standing member of Congress, and even many Republicans say that he is a man of principle. He votes just about against anything in terms of breaking the federal budget, and he certainly made some of the most. I saw the debate, and the problem with a debate like that is that you have so little time to make your point. And when you try to make your point, it comes out rather disjointed. And he sounded like he was, he sounded a little, but I got the point what he was trying to say. I mean, and he explained himself very clearly on CNN a couple of days later. But the way he said it on that debate made it appear like he was a lunatic, but he really is not.
I understand, and definitely someone like Giuliani played into it as if, the problem is your way of thinking, whereas the truth is, and I'm sorry to say it, but I think blowback and a lot of things we've done in other countries has a lot to do with the hatred of us in other countries.
I hear you. Okay, listen, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
We're on WBAI. We're going to come up with Ralph Nader right after this little musical interlude. Stay with us here on WBAI in New York. More Chip Shelton.
Plenty good. We're jamming at Cape May now. We're feeling plenty good. 'Cause we got this place a rockin', just like we knew we would. You know the jazz is jamming. Cape May's feet begin to tap. You know the jazz is jamming. Folks' hands begin to clap. We're gonna jam until it's over. Get into something after that. Tell all your friends about it. The party was out of sight. Tell them how the band was thumping. You know they did it right. Tell them Chip Shelton came to party. Tell the broad daylight. Tell them if they miss it next time, my big dog's gonna have to bite. He's a jazz hungry big dog. He's feeling plenty good.
.30 is the time here on WBAI in New York. Shelton Walden here, your host of Walden's Pond. We're here every Sunday, 1 to 2 o'clock here on WBAI, discuss health, culture, and politics. On the line with us is two-time presidential candidate and well-known, of course, environmental and political activist, Mr. Ralph Nader. Mr. Nader, welcome to Walden's Pond. Can you hear me? Okay. I can't hear you very loudly here on the air. I don't know what's going on here. Let's see here. What we got here? Oh, boy. This is one of those. Hello, can you hear me now?
Hello.
Yes. Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah, here we are.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, good. Welcome to the show. Thank you for sharing part of your day. I know you're in a very important meeting, and but I wanted to talk with you about a number of issues. And first of all, how are you doing these days?
Fine. We've just finished a nationwide tour on the book I've just written, The 17 Traditions,
yes.
which people are very interested in because it's not a usual type of book going after corporate power or government dereliction. It's a story of how my mother and father raised their 4 children, and they all turned out to be civic leaders. If we're looking for civic leaders, Shelton, we better look at how family upbringing is critical.
Well, Mr. Nader, you're a person. You're one of the great figures in American history. There's no question about that, and. People obviously know about all your public work you've done. You've been in the public eye for over 50 years. But people have always been curious, and you've been, if you will, kind of reticent about revealing parts of your personal history. Why did you decide at this point in your life to do this?
Well, I think it was a love story for my mother and dad, who just missed their 100th birthday, each of them. And in doing it, and we're urging lots of families around the country to do the same thing, put down their family traditions and pass them on to the youngsters who are spending all too much time watching screens these days. In doing the book, I realized that this really could be very helpful in a casual storytelling way to lots of parents now raising children. Because it's the same challenges. We were raised in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and it's the same challenges. The technology may be different. iPods now, RC Victor phonographs then. But, parents have to meet the same challenges, getting the children to respect them, to eat right, to do their chores, to complete their studies on time, to take care of their health, not to fall in with the wrong crowd. And I thought, with the family under tremendous economic pressure these days in America, tremendous commercialization of childhood, just all the junk and violence that these big companies are selling to kids or getting kids to nag the parents to buy, the strength of the family is absolutely necessary. And the way my parents defined family values, there was no difference between family values and civic community improvement values, and the values of my father and his restaurant on Main Street in this little factory town opposite all the textile companies. So it's quite a different definition of family values than the right wing has utilized to bludgeon liberals with over the years, politically and otherwise.
A small town in Connecticut called Winsted, Connecticut.
Yes.
The 17 Traditions, where did that come from, the title?
Well, there are 17 ways my parents raised us. The first one is teaching us to learn to listen, because if we're talking all the time, my mother said you're not going to learn much, so you better listen so you can listen to learn. And that made us much better observers. When they took us to the town meetings and the courtrooms as youngsters, we became very, very absorbed, and we didn't fidget because we had learned to listen. And then there are all the learning how to take care of our health, learning how to critically think, learning how to be civically aware. They never preferred one child over another. There's a tradition of sibling equality, a tradition of solitude. They gave us our solace. They didn't overschedule us. They would discipline us with proverbs. They didn't believe in corporal punishment. They thought that was bad for the child, but a bad reflection on their inability to prevent that level of misbehavior. So there are lots of traditions, and so they totaled up 17. So I said, well, to my publisher, HarperCollins, why not call it 17 Traditions? And we have a website, 17traditions.com, 17 spelled out, urging families all over the country, and they're doing it, to send us a tradition or two in order to get the ball rolling in their own family. Because it is priceless wisdom here, priceless wisdom from the best practices, going back great-grandparents, grandparents, great-aunts, great-uncles, parents, that need to be preserved in this fast-paced electronic age of ours.
Your parents were really one of the best traditions of immigration. They came here from Lebanon, and they really immersed themselves in the American Constitution. They imbued in you and your rest of your siblings a really healthy respect for the Constitution, for debate, in the best tradition of American democracy. What do you think civics have gone wrong? Because you really inculcated that in your public work throughout the rest of your life. I mean, has something gone wrong here?
Yeah, what's gone wrong is children today are spending less time with adults, including their parents, than any generation in human history. It all starts with time. It also starts with the extent to which children now are being distracted away from the family environment. And longer commute times, for example, for the parents, the almost end of the extended family when the mother and father aren't there. Where's the grandmother? Where's the grandfather? Where's the aunt? They're all spread all over the United States now. I mean, the extended family, except for recent immigrant families, is almost gone. And this constant commercial marketing to kids, which is absolutely difficult to overestimate. I mean, kids are spending more time in corporate time than they are in parent time. When you just consider the amount of hours children are spending watching television, watching internet screens, watching playing video games, military toys for age 5 boys, cosmetics for age 7 girls, McDonald's is feeding them, Time Warner is entertaining them, the drug companies are over-medicating them, the infant formula companies are replacing mother's milk. All of this, while the parents are desperately traveling and working longer hours in order to try to make ends meet as the middle class is shredded down into the poverty class. And you can see what a crisis it is. And the neighborhoods have essentially dried up. In our town, the sidewalks were full of people. There was a lot of interaction, human interaction. Now, of course, it's watching screens. So the whole environment is anti-civic. It's anti-civic and community involvement. And that's why this book tries to say to families around the country, become more self-conscious of your family, what you're losing, and how you can get it back.
Ralph Nader, by the way, we're talking with Ralph Nader here on WBA on Walden's Pond. We don't have a limited amount of time. I just want to share with the audience one very, very funny story in the book, and it has to do with, in terms of civics, your mother, and by the way, I just discovered reading the book that the Wall Street Journal wrote an editorial just on your mother many years ago.
Can you imagine?
What was that about? I
guess they got the Wall Street Journal editorial guys who are in the Pleistocene age. I guess they got tired of trashing me, 40, 50 editorials, so they went after my mother once, trashing her because she had us eating raw chickpeas on the way to school rather than candy. And they said, look how puritanical she raised her children. My mother got a great, funny kick out of this. I mean, she couldn't believe that the Wall Street Journal didn't have anything else to say that day.
But listen, you have to tell your story. Please tell a story about your mother and the grandfather of our current president, please.
Yeah, Senator Prescott Bush was a senator from Connecticut, and in 1955, our town was devastated by Hurricane Diane, and the Mad River overflowed and just destroyed the main street, took 11 lives, and it was the third flood in 40 years. And so my mother said, enough is enough. The town's politicians kept talking about a dry dam and delaying it. So she heard Prescott Bush was coming to town. She went to the reception, stood in line, went up. He was shaking hands one after the other and smiling the way politicians do. And she grabbed his hand, and she said, Senator Bush, you have a lot of influence in Washington. You've got to get the Corps of Engineers to build the dry dam above the Mad River so we don't have this kind of destruction anymore. And he was nodding and ready to go for the next handshake, and she wouldn't let go. She wouldn't let go. And there was this 5-second, 10-second, 15-second awkward moment with about 10 people watching close by, and she was waiting for his answer. And he finally said, all right, Mrs. Nader, I will work to get you a dry dam. And we got a dry dam, and there's never been a flood since. It works very beautifully. So my mother's lesson to the children, Civics 101, the only time you're likely to get close to a politician is shaking the politician's hand. So if you want an answer to your question, don't let go.
Is it true that she said, "Look, you'll get your dam. Just let go of my damn hand"?
Yeah. I mean, it was just well, and since then, Shelton, I've had people say they've tried it with politicians, and I can see all over the country politicians desperately and still graciously trying to extricate themselves from this citizen who wants a straight answer to a straight question for a change.
Absolutely. Listen, Mr. Nader, I got to ask you, are you going to run again?
Too early to say, and here's what I mean. First of all, it is too early, but I will need 20,000 volunteers all over the country and probably 20 pro bono lawyers to forestall what the Democratic Party is going to do again, what they did to us in 2004 when they filed 21 phony lawsuits to keep us off the ballot. You see, the Democratic Party thinks it owns the liberal and progressive vote in this country. And instead of earning it by out-arguing or out-meriting any other challenges on the ballot, they're saying to people who might vote for me, well, we're going to try to make sure in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Illinois and Oregon and elsewhere that he's not going to get on the ballot. And they have all these state laws, and New York has its share, that the two parties have enacted, which they can maneuver at the appropriate times in ways that are absolutely staggering in the number of obstructions to keep third-party independent candidates off the ballot. And, of course, the Green Party in New York and others have seen the difficulty there. And we need one federal law, just one federal law of ballot access for people in this country who run for federal office like Congress or the presidency. Instead, we got 50 different state laws, sometimes county rules. If you're not a resident of Arizona, you can't be a petitioner on the street corner, and on and on and on. Just thousands of ways they can disqualify thousands of names if they want to, as they did in Pennsylvania. I mean, to show you how bad it is, the corporate Republican firm Reed Smith in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia was hired by the Democratic National Committee in 2004 to get us off the ballot in Pennsylvania, which is a classic act of political bigotry. Someday the judges will treat that the way they treated, the way they are now increasingly treating voter rights. They'll treat candidates' rights with the same respect. Anyway, they got a political judge in Philadelphia, Shelton, to assess me and Peter Camejo, my running mate, $81,000 to pay for the corporate law firm's transcription costs and handwriting expert costs. Now, that is the first time in American legal history that a candidate trying to defend himself from being pushed off the ballot has to pay the expenses of the corporate law firm or any plaintiff that brought that case. So someday people really get upset about that because, voter rights aren't worth as much without candidates' rights, more voices and choices on the ballot. And candidates' rights aren't worth much without voter rights, so they go hand in hand in a functioning democracy.
Mr. Nader, you've been around a long time, so you have a tough skin, no question about it, but it must have hurt when a lot of the Democrats, last time I had you on was almost 2.5 years ago before the election, and so many people were so angry. I talked to them off the air that I even spoke to you on the air. And so many people are still furious. They're to the point of apoplectic anger at you for running. How did you feel about all these people who had long supported you, your efforts, your causes, what you've done? All of a sudden they turned on you so viciously.
Well, I'd say respectfully for them to go beyond first-grade arithmetic. Because if you ask Al Gore, why'd you lose the election, Al? And I've talked to him. He would say, well, I think I won the election, even in Florida, but it was taken from me. And then you say, well, how could you have won it even bigger? And you say, well, I wish those 250,000 Democrats in Florida wouldn't have voted for Bush, or the mayor of Miami wouldn't have sabotaged my campaign because he had a grudge with local Democrats and he flew to Madrid for 11 days before Election Day. Or Catherine Harris and Jeb Bush didn't misdiagnose thousands and thousands of Floridians as being ex-felons with a consulting firm they hired and it was false designation. Yeah, and I wish I had gotten my home state of Tennessee, like most presidential candidates do. No, she doesn't blame the Green Party, and the liberals who voted for Gore shouldn't either. I might add that there's a professor who's analyzed the dynamics before Election Day, how my pushing Gore to take some more progressive stands, like going after the drug companies, insurance, and oil companies, actually got him a bump in the polls. Most of my votes would have stayed home or voted for Bush. Only 40% of my votes would have voted for Gore if Nader LeDuc were not on the ballot. And 2 days after the election, Shelton, AP had a poll removing Nader LeDuc from the equation, and Bush would have beaten Gore. So you see, it's the dynamics before Election Day as to how a small candidate pushing a larger candidate affects the election. And Solon Simmons, who's a professor at George Mason University in Virginia, would be happy to send you his research on the data pertaining to that dynamic.
But, you know, in the documentary I saw, which is, by the way, The Unreasonable Man, which I think is terrific, documentary about your life. By the way, did you like the documentary they did about you?
Yeah, I thought it was a fair presentation. I mean, I'll tell you, it was no advertisement. It was a lot of clashing views. Some of the most vitriolic critics were given a chance again and again.
I mean, how do you feel about those critics? They were vicious. I mean, how do you feel about that personally? Do you have any personal feelings about some of these people who turned on you?
No, because I still believe that if they thought about it a little deeper, as I've just described it, they wouldn't be so vitriolic. I just think, and then we're talking about Eric Alterman of the Nation. Yeah. By the way, you know how I got back at Eric Alterman, Shelton? I got 1,300 copies of his book, What Liberal Media, and gave it free to the students at the Northwestern University School of Journalism. How's that for turning the other cheek? Huh? He couldn't believe it. I think he was sputtering on his website when he heard about it.
Well, he was vicious. Listen, may I ask you a question, an issue very close to your heart, because it has to do with your parents. Your parents came here as immigrants, and I mean, you know, the rest is history. What do you think about the current mood about immigration and to the immigration bill that's passing through the Congress right now?
Well, I start out basically, if we didn't have such a rapacious foreign policy in Mexico and Central America, supporting dictatorships over the decades and oligarchs, they would have had a better economy, and people don't normally want to leave their native land. They leave because they're desperate to go north and eke out a few bucks that they can send back to feed their children and their family. So that's number one. Number two, I don't believe we should brain drain the rest of the world, taking doctors, nurses, engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs here with all kinds of incentives, and leave these third world countries without those kinds of dynamic actors. That's two. Those two are not part of the immigration debate. That's why I led with them. Third, I think if you've got illegal immigrants here working jobs and having their taxes withheld, they should be treated exactly the same as American workers. They should not be treated cruelly because they can't speak out and they're terrified and they're abused, as they are in a lot of the meat packing and poultry processing big plants. Four, if we had a $10 minimum wage, maybe a lot of these jobs that, quote, Americans don't like to do, maybe they would like to do it, right? Instead of $5.15 an hour or even less in the agricultural areas. And then finally, I do believe we have to control our borders. We have to control our borders because otherwise we will have a huge depression on our wages, especially among minorities in this country. And that's why the Wall Street Journal loves open borders. But we've got to control our borders to stop smuggling, to deal with infectious diseases, to deal with the huge pollution that's coming over from Mexico, for example. So we've got to control our borders. That I agree with some of the...
Why come the Democrats and Republicans both seem to be feckless on this issue?
First, they don't want to crack down on the employers because those guys are the ones that are giving them the campaign contributions. Number two, they don't want to raise the minimum wage immediately to $10 an hour, which would be, by the way, the purchasing power of what the minimum wage was in 1968. No big deal, huh? The fat cats are making $1 million a month or more as CEOs. Their salaries have been zooming northward, but they've been they've been bringing the workers to their knees with a decreasing real minimum wage. So both Democrats and Republicans don't want to do that. And the third is they have a hard time standing up to Silicon Valley and other fat cats that are pouring millions of dollars in both Democrat and Republican candidate coffers and stop the brain drain. The amazing thing is Tom Friedman the other day in the New York Times, he goes around the world saying that these third world countries need human capital. They need the experts, the entrepreneurs, the scientists, the computer people to revive or expand or develop their economies. And then he writes a column last week where he says, hey, all these foreign students who get PhDs in this country, give them immediate citizenship. Get all these foreign students, make sure they don't go back home. We need them here. I mean, it is crazy, isn't it? Brain draining the rest of the world. Now, for example, there are huge shortages of nurses in Africa because they're being brain drained into Europe and into the United States. No, we've got to have a very wide spectrum debate on immigration and stick to the issue by issue and the factual and value questions involved.
Yeah, he listens to the voice of Ralph Nader here on Walden's Pond, here on WBAI in New York. Shelton Walden here. A question of the age of the moment is: if Ralph Nader, if you was running for president, how would you end the war in Iraq?
Just what I said in 2004. I hardly have to change anything. You announce a 6-month withdrawal. You couldn't get out in less than 6 months logistically. During that time, you have UN-sponsored elections, because these elections were installed by a military garrison over a year and a half ago. You have UN-sponsored elections. The UN has done that before in other countries. Number two, you invite, at the request of the Iraqis, soldiers, peacekeepers from nearby Islamic countries. Number three, you continue humanitarian aid. And number four, you recognize that while Iraq is in chaos, there are still major authority figures, tribal chiefs, religious figures, and some political leaders from all three factions, Kurds, Shiites, Sunni. They can be brought together and basically to move into the vacuum. The minute we announce a withdrawal date, the bottom falls out of the insurgency. The insurgency has no neighborhood support and credibility except to get rid of the military occupier and the occupier of their oil wealth. So the minute you have to announce a withdrawal date. But in the 6 months, you go to work on all these fronts as well. Listen, if we keep staying there with loss of American lives, billions of dollars every month down the drain that can be used for the necessities of the people here, and hundreds of thousands of Iraqi casualties as their country is being regularly destroyed, what's going to happen is what General Casey and the former CIA head for Bush, his hand-picked Porter Goss, said publicly, that our military presence in Iraq is fueling the insurgency and is a magnet for bringing more and more people from other countries to train and become saboteurs and go back to their country. Now, if that's the case, that's a terrible way to fight terrorism. You do not fight terrorism with a policy that expands the number of terrorists. And that's exactly what Bush's own general and his own CIA director warned about in testimony and public statements. So, not to mention all the retired generals, admirals, diplomats, and ex-intelligence people who were against this criminal war before it started and now when it's underway.
Well, Ralph Nader, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time here. You obviously, you're a great man, and you're obviously one of the great figures in American history. And I appreciate you sharing part of your afternoon with us here on Walden's Pond this afternoon. Your latest book is called The 17 Traditions, about your childhood, the principles you were raised on growing up in Winston, Connecticut. I wish we had more time. I hope you will come back on again soon, and we can take some of our calls from our listeners. But I wish you well, and I thank you again for being here on Walden's Pond this afternoon.
Well, I certainly would like to come on again. I owe it to you, Shelton. We've been missing each other here, and I appreciate your forbearance. And it's always great to be on WBAI, one of the great truth-saying radio stations in the United States. So, and your listeners are about as informed and engaged citizens as any radio listeners in the country. But I hope you read the book. It's an inspiring book. I hope the people listening read it. It's in the bookstores. It's on the websites that are available. And it's a great Mother and Father's Day gift, as well as a baby shower gift. I say this because, it's the wisdom and insight experience of my parents. I was just a scribe for them, and I think they would love knowing that their insights and wisdom are helping young families all over the country.
Oh, absolutely. I know it will. Thank you again, Ralph. And